Tracey. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank
Yay.
you.
Thank you so much for doing this with me today. I just I love our story of how we met, and I'm just so excited because I know you have, just from working with you, I know that you have a mindset that is very caring, and I just love that we connected, and it was just through a transaction, which is crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But then again too, like because I work on my own, I don't work in a sales office.
right.
I capture those moments when they're presented to me, if you will, especially when you vibe with someone like we did, like right
Right.
away, like we were speaking each other's love language, and that's like what
Exactly.
mattered completely.
Yes.
Hmm.
Well, I'm Melissa Johnson, and this is It's All in Your Head, our podcast. And so what I like to do is I like to hear other people's stories because I feel like a lot of people think, "Oh, I'm alone. I don't feel this way." And I think when they hear different people and the things that they think about, it will change lives in the sense that you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I feel that way too." So
Right, right.
that's kind of been the brainchild of this because I've had people ask, like, "You're a real estate agent. Like, what does this have to do with mindset?" And like, if we are not in the right mindset, like this boat isn't going anywhere.
Right. No, like it's self-fulfilling prophecy, if you
Yes.
will.
Yes.
Right? Like it's just your head has to be there. It has to be in the game. But really not even just necessarily real estate, like when you look
Anyway.
back.
Yeah.
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 Sometimes you
So,
don't realize till retrospect, but
no,
it's always
exactly. So I'm hoping that we can bring some retrospect to some people and maybe kind of fast forward that because I know that for myself, I guess everybody comes into it in their own time, but I'm just hoping that our story will resonate with someone and will help them kind of get a little ahead of the game. So tell us about who you are, where you're from, and
okay.
what you do.
All right. So I'm originally from Chicago.
Okay.
And you'll hear it in my voice from time to time, and you definitely can tell it in like my sass, I feel like. Um, and then, but I did go to high school, middle school, and high school in Tallahassee. So, Chicago by way of Tallahassee. And now I live over in Port Orange.
Okay.
I've lived in Volusia County since 2005. I got my license the day the bubble burst. Like I got my license and pop, you heard the bubble burst. But it's all gravy, right?
And
So
you're still here. Look at that.
that's right. That's right. So in any event, I've been in Volusia County now since 2005, living over in Port Orange, but I've lived on both sides of the county. But now we're nestled in here over in Port Orange.
That's awesome. And I think I kind of said it before, but you're a real estate agent. You got your real estate license right after the bubble burst. Tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about that. Because I mean, I think just living through that whole ordeal, I was not in real estate. I just kind of was a bystander and watched it from, my classroom and saw
Right.
go through it. So tell us about
So I was living in Tallahassee at the time, and I was running the satellite campus for Barry University, like how they have the satellite campuses on community college campuses. And so I was basically like recruiting, because that's my other like chapter of life is, I used to be a headhunter. So in any event, I was recruiting, students there, and the university decided to change their pay system to like, basically I was going to go a month without a paycheck. And as it was, I wasn't making bupkis,
right,
and I wasn't
right,
going to until I had got a master's degree or something. So I'd hit the glass ceiling basically in academia, because that's not something I wanted to pursue.
right.
So at the same time, my step siblings, and that's how I have to, because our parents have been married since I was 7. Their dad and stepmom owned a real estate company right on in Daytona Beach Shores, across from all the Oceans buildings. So if somebody knows like Daytona Beach Shores, they know all the Oceans buildings.
Right.
And they were telling me to come down, come down, come down. Well, it was like one of those things, the writing was on the wall. Like, first of all, any place that's gonna just out of nowhere tell me I got to go a month without a paycheck, I couldn't afford that.
Right.
Could not afford that. So I came down here and I started working with them in their real estate office, Peninsula Realty. Right after I did that, my one sister had decided to go out to Vegas. She was the one running the property management. So it worked out really well that, well, like when the bubble burst, people had to do something with all that investment property they purchased. So they had to rent it out. Well,
Right.
my skill set totally went into like, I mean, it was so natural. It was seamless. You know what I'm saying? So I ran the property management. So I was able to survive and still eat because all those people who couldn't sell their places had to rent them. And other people on the strip knew I had integrity. So they would refer their clients to me. So
Right.
the portfolio got larger, you
Yeah.
know? So that was, but it was so intimidating for me. And like the folks I worked for, they were very like back to basics, old school, which I adore. And I like, that's my jam,
Yeah.
100%. However, I felt intimidated because I was so used to working in more of like a corporate or like that meant hourly worker mentality.
Mhm.
You know, like the place that cares if you're 15 minutes late, but they don't care if you stay
Oh,
15 minutes late.
yes. Yeah.
But like that had been like pounded into me my whole life that
Absolutely.
I was scared to go out and like preview property, which I
Like
should have freaking done. And
and
as
you
soon
feel
as I
like you had
started
to tell
doing
somebody.
that,
Yeah. Like, "Oh, I'm
right,
going here, I'm going there." It's almost like
or
an
right,
abusive
like I
relationship.
was so scared. I was
Yeah.
scared, like
Yeah.
like fear overtook me, like truly.
Yep.
So in any event, it was, so I didn't do as well. And I did sales and
Yeah.
I was able to really learn a lot, but I wasn't selling as much as I could have at the time,
What
probably.
do you
But
think that is? Like, what do you think it was that was holding you back a little bit?
oh, like I think intimidation,
Yeah.
in part, I had not yet been exposed to. I was the price tags of these condos that really wasn't that much was still intimidating to me to ask people to spend this much money.
Right.
Now, in the same vein, me being who I am, and you know me, and anybody who knows me for more than like 15 minutes knows I have like no filter, like
But that's
like
why
at a
we love
whole
you.
new level that people just don't even understand.
Right.
And um, and in any event, so at the same time, like I'm working on this one condo and I'm working on selling it, and this is at the point now where people aren't. It's now turning back into a you know a buyer's market. It's not a seller's market, and these people didn't want to change they didn't want to fix something wrong with the air conditioner. And at the end of the day, they were making like they were clearing like I don't know $300,000, but
Right.
they didn't want to like pitch in like the 1,500 that was required at the
It
time.
was
And
hard
no
for them.
filter Tracy says, so I guess I'm going to tell my son that he can't learn the trumpet because you don't want to change your air conditioner. Not a great sales tactic. Not a great sales tactic. But that being said, they changed the air conditioner. But I would, from time to time, see these little sides of me, like with confidence, that they would like jump out.
So you knew it was
I
in
just wish I would have been there all the time. Like with property management, nothing. Like you can't tell me. Like I was confident, 100%. I wasn't concerned, but I wasn't as intimidated. I was
you.
intimidated with this.
So where do you think, because this is something that I love to hear, because I feel like most people have that confidence in them in certain areas, but when it comes to something like you said, intimidating, there's that confidence where we lack. So where do you think that line was drawn of that you had all this confidence in property managing, but it wasn't in the confidence of selling? What do you, was it something that you told yourself like in your head that
I think, you know what I think? Because I wasn't building the relationships yet.
mm,
I hadn't learned that balance. Plus, it was kind of like a different demographic. It was very transactional on the beach.
yeah.
You know, when I moved, away from more inland and stopped doing work on the beach, it wasn't so transactional. And I built the relationships, which is, I think, part of the reason why I'm still in real estate now.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of it, because then once you build those relationships, it becomes natural. With property management, by the very nature of it, I have to kind of build a relationship
Mhm.
because there's a lot more kind of communication and moving parts, particularly at the onboarding process or the vetting process or whatever.
Building
So
that
I
trust.
think that, yeah, that, and then also too, I think that property management, I basically had done before.
Right.
Property management is just adulting, right? Like
On
I
crack.
really,
It's adulting on crack.
right. Or like adulting for like a bajillion people,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that felt like second hat, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't as difficult. Plus, even in a professional environment, I had already kind of done some of the same things, like facilities management stuff, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So there was no questioning. There's no questioning of it.
Do you
And
feel,
again, the price tag
yeah,
wasn't as big, wasn't freaking me out.
right. Do you feel like now that you've had, do you feel like your confidence from that point to this point, do you feel like it's pretty equal, or do you feel like you still kind of struggle with that a little bit?
So it's funny you say that, because my most recent thing that I want to sort of set as a challenge for myself, or something I want to focus on my own personal improvement, is like this whole imposter syndrome thing. Like, I need the pill, I need the
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like, I'm done with it. Like, I don't want that in my purview anymore.
And I think we
Imaginary
all suffer,
audience, imposter syndrome, whatever you want to
right?
call it.
But I think
That's part of
everyone
what I do.
suffers from it. I mean, I think
Right.
at some level, I think, especially when you're starting to do something new, or you're starting to break into a new level, it's like, oh, I don't really belong there. I'm not, it's that whole thing that we play in our head.
Right. Well, and I really wish somebody had said to me when I first started in real estate, pretty much everybody's faking it till they make it. Like,
And
or
even
like
when they
half
make
of
it, they're
what,
still faking it.
right, right,
Some
right,
level, like they're faking it.
right,
Like,
right.
I'm
But they were,
making,
the mind, it was the
yeah,
mindset thing. Do you know what
yeah,
I'm saying? They were
yeah.
there, they weren't. And to me, and I think part of it too, it comes from, I don't know if it's the case with all women, but part of me feels like, you know, there's this sort of conditioning to an extent sometimes to stay in your lane, or
Mm,
make sure that you don't be unrealistic. Just like back in the day, women couldn't go to college. You know what
right,
I'm
right,
saying? Or like,
yeah,
those were lofty goals. Why weren't you finding a husband? And
yeah,
so as that morphs into something different over time, I think that I still got a little bit of that, sort of back end of it. And two, being a single mom, like I couldn't take risks. I was afraid to take risks. I needed to know that the
yeah,
roof would be over our head and food in our mouth and all that kind of jazz.
right.
So the dynamic of that was very, I think that played a serious role.
Right. So that kind of leads us to the one question. Is there a unique moment or memory that you feel was monumental in your recognizing what you're saying today about your mindset? Like, I wish I had been more confident, or I wish I had this mindset. Was there something that happened, or you feel like was a monumental place in your life that you said, okay, I can't keep thinking this anymore?
So, so in that respect, I think it was 2018, and I'm very open about this. I had a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Like, I snapped. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it anymore. Too much. It happens to all of us.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
and I mean, I really feel like it does. Like, there was a friend that I used to be in young professionals group with,
Mhm.
and he had fallen off the radar. And it's funny because me and a few other people were kind of going through the same thing at the same time. It's pre-COVID, but it was just like we were all around the same age, and it was at that point.
Yeah.
And not only had there been like a lot of trauma previous to that,
Mhm.
um, it was at the same time I had kind of I came home to my beautiful house with my beautiful wife and my excellent company that I'm running and all the things. And then it was like,
Yeah.
well, what's my purpose?
Right.
Because now, like, nothing matters.
Mhm.
So that actually took like a year, like, to truly, truly get out of it took me like a year and a half. But to even just start like doing more than the basics took probably a
So,
good 3-4 months.
so did
Like,
you
I did
feel,
what I had to.
so do you feel like you got to a place in your business, you got to a place in your personal life, you got to a place that you kind of had reached certain goals, and you're like, okay, I'm here. Now what? Like, I'm not
Right. Well, that's what
really
it was. Like, I
fulfilled.
felt like,
I'm not feeling the way I thought I would feel when I reached this level.
right. Well, okay. So in that respect, the joy, like the completeness was there. Like, I
Mhm.
felt like I had the completeness,
Right.
but I didn't feel like I had purpose, or
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I mattered.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yep.
So like, I can't, like, sometimes I get choked up when I talk about it.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think
because
that,
it's still so real,
yeah.
you know?
And I think a lot of people feel that way. And the fact that you're talking about it, I think it brings it to people. They're like, okay, this is not crazy. I'm not falling off the deep end. We
Right.
at some point in our life have these huge things that kind of boil up. Like, I don't know if it's as we get older, if that's what it is. but I hear it quite often that it is that whole thing that you just said. I need purpose. Like I've done all these great things, but I still don't feel like I matter.
Right, right. And like, so here's the thing too, because like I was already like living my passion. Okay. Like I enjoy helping people. So I was doing the thing that everybody says to do, or, and I, like I was believing it. It's not, you know what I'm saying? But I had to, first of all, I had to find balance,
Yes.
because when you're building a business and when you're in real estate, plus like the whole social dynamic and the way that people in real estate are treated like commodities and not
All the
afforded the same level of respect as other professionals at our level of knowledge and expertise. Yes, there's every industry has blowhards out there, okay? Like, attorneys, doctors, I mean, like everybody has
yeah,
their set of people that kind of suck,
yeah.
right? But when you're clearly not one of those people,
It's hard to break out of that.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? And so
Of what people
that
think.
gets right, right. And so it would get, so that aspect of it was frustrating, but then also I was like working like all these hours and I loved it. And like
Yeah.
it was totally like, it was kind of like you get off on it, like you're just going, 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 going. I love the rush. It's why I'm in sales, you
Right.
know, but there was no balance. And finding the balance was, and I've been saying for years, I've been trying to do it, that I wanted to find it. Well, let me tell you something.
Mhm.
Universe made sure I found it. So as I came
Yep.
as I came back into like adulting again, if you will,
Mhm.
outside of everything necessary to keep my business running and take care of my clients, I started peppering in things like my rule that I unplug at 7 o'clock.
Mhm.
Those first 6 months of not replying to a text or answering my phone after 7 o'clock were
Oh,
torture,
yes.
torture,
Yes.
absolute torture.
Mhm.
And then over time, I started saying what my boundaries were
Right.
and
Did
making
you
it clear.
Was there a part of you that was uncomfortable with not like, and I think it goes for any boundary. When we start to finally like initiate a boundary that we really want, it feels really cringy at first, but then there's that little voice in the back of your head that says, I'm really proud of you. Like,
Well, oh,
like there's
absolutely.
they're kind of both feelings at the same time.
Right. Well, don't you think that we're afraid of rejection, basically? Like when
Well,
we,
yeah, because you're
what
afraid you're gonna
basically
lose
the reason
touch.
why that we don't set those boundaries is we don't want somebody to be mad at us or reject us in some capacity because that feels like crap. Nobody
Yeah,
wants to do that. And
yeah,
so, but what we're doing is sacrificing ourselves
yeah.
for their
At what
comfort.
exactly, and at what cost? And yeah, no, that's
Exactly.
so true.
Exactly. And at what cost? If I have a client who can't respect my boundaries and feels it's necessary to text me at 10 o'clock, listen, those are booty call hours. Okay. You do not need to be texting somebody at 10 o'clock. You can send an email. Do you know what I'm saying? And then I'll
Yes,
remember it.
right.
I mean, especially back in my Ambien days, there's no way I was going to remember that text. What if so, there's
That is
so,
perfect. Yeah. No,
right,
you're right.
right,
And there's nothing literally, I mean, unless the house is on fire, and if your house is on fire, I'm not the person you should call. It's the fire
right.
department. But there's really not much we can do at 10 o'clock at night with our business. Like there is, I mean, there aren't
There is, but there
many.
isn't because you can't even like, with the exception of like going bilateral on a contract.
Right.
But even to that extent, I feel like there should be some level of, I get that we're trying to do the best for our client, but extend some professional courtesy to your colleague and don't make them
Yeah.
like kill
I gotta have
themselves
this
so
in
that we
by
can,
noon or by midnight. Yeah.
yeah, or whatever. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Because we're also trying to control other personalities and the behaviors of others who may have stronger, maybe more firm in their boundaries.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's always the
So
juggle too.
So when things kind of all the wheels kind of fell off and you found yourself in that place, what did you do to snap yourself out of it? Like because some people could get to that place and then they spiral down, 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 and they stay there. What do you think you did that made it different that you started piecing it back together so you are where you are today and not still in that dark place?
There's all so there's a ton of things that I did, and I was constantly reading up on stuff. So I was changing my diet.
Mm.
I tried to exercise. I made sure that I got sun. I made sure that I was getting B12 and all that. And then there were some There were some other things that I tried too that were that I don't know if we really want to discuss here, but like you know, I did not want to go the route of getting stuck with a bottle of pills making me happy.
Yeah.
And so I had to find a way to create a catalyst to find my joy.
Yeah.
And once I did have that click and I started seeing colors again, I started embracing it and started. I mean, because you legit don't see any colors when you're in the rabbit hole. Everything is gray and dreary and horrible.
Yeah.
So, and I paid attention to, like, even down to the point though, like I can't eat potato chips anymore. I can't eat processed food or go to McDonald's because it affects my gut health, which affects the whole rest of my body, and then ultimately impacts my psyche.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to compromise that for a Big Mac, which I never liked anyhow. But, and I was already getting close to like not really eating fast food, but now I can't even.
Right.
Every time I think I'm going to like take one for the team, I regret it. It's just bad. So, so I got to keep, like, I got to eat pretty clean.
Right.
And it doesn't mean I don't get to eat. You know, I'm a whole lot of beautiful. I love to cook, you know, and I love to eat, but I can't eat crap, you know?
So you've noticed that the way you ate definitely had an impact on.
Right. So that was one thing, but there's like so many aspects to it, right? So like I had to pay attention to how much I ate. I had to pay attention to who I was around, make sure I wasn't around energy vampires, right? And I still have to be conscious of that.
Yeah.
Because I do pay it forward so often, and I do try to make other people like it drives me to bring joy to others.
But
and so
when you're that type of a person, and I'm a recovering people pleaser, I call it. I tend to attract vampire friends because I don't see it until they're like latched onto my neck, and I'm like, okay, there's no give and take here, and you have to, do you find that as well? Like,
oh yeah, well, I don't even mean to do it.
No, it's
right.
Like
I'm just, but
absolutely.
Then obviously, and sometimes it's not even maybe so much energy vampire as people who are just, particularly women. I don't think we get props enough from people, like just generally across the board though. And like in America, I don't think we compliment and say nice things often enough.
Well, I don't know. There's a competition, an underlying competition in general until you find your tribe. And then when you find that tribe that, like, you attract the people that you are cooperating with, and and I use our example as a perfect example. Like when we were working that transaction, we both, I feel very confidently that your seller walked away with everything that they could have gotten and they were happy. And my buyer walked away with everything that they could have gotten and they were happy. And I feel like you and I did such a great job working together to say, okay, here's where their thing is that they have to have. And you would say, okay, here's what they need to have. And
collaborating on a win-win basis, not adversarial, still maintaining the integrity of things and not divulging what we shouldn't, but still working for our clients. But getting that, and at the end, because it doesn't have to be adversarial. And any transaction, whether it's real estate or otherwise, does not have to be adversarial. But I think there's a thing there, maybe because people want to play the game. I say all the time with real estate, sometimes this is going to be the only time someone ever plays the market. It's the only time they're ever going to feel like a baller. They want to be able to call the shots. They want to be able to negotiate.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's so true. But you're right. Even in like the friend circle or anything else, like, just finding those people that want to, they want to support you and lift you up and not be those people. So you got to be real careful with the people that you.
Right. So, but let me ask you something.
Yeah.
When you, as the recovering people pleaser, and you're great with being complimentary with people, or just making sure that you bring some sunshine to their day.
Thank you.
Do you ever find yourself feeling like your cup isn't getting filled, but you're busy filling everyone else's?
I would say early on in my recovery, definitely. But now, like I notice where my boundaries are, and I make sure that I'm taking care of myself. I make sure that I'm, like you said, getting outside, spending time with myself. And what I've really been working on is not getting not getting those accolades and not relying on those accolades from the people pleasing of like, oh, look at I helped this person and they're going to fill me up and make me feel like I'm worthy. What I've been really working on is doing that for myself. That
Right.
the whole world could fall apart and the person I can count on is myself, and that I can do that for myself. I don't have to get it from outside places. Do you feel like
Right.
that's kind of something that you,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
like once I stepped out of the rabbit hole,
yeah,
one of the things that I started doing and implementing, I think we've talked about this, I go on a personal retreat every 3 months.
I love
I
that.
go over to these little cabins. Last time I went to a hotel up in Jacksonville, that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
As long as you have a good view. But that, it was, they're all like IKEA'd out. I have everything I need. The Wi-Fi sucks. That's wonderful.
Perfect.
Cell signal
Yeah.
sucks. That's wonderful.
Isn't
And
it true?
so it's a 2.5 hour drive from where I'm at. And so I listen to something motivational on the way over,
Yeah.
or something to get my brain stirring.
Yeah.
And then I spend 2 days working on personal and professional goals, and like checking in with myself, like being totally raw and honest with myself.
Mhm.
What is it that I'm, truly frustrated with right now? Where do I think I could do better? Where am I selling myself short? Looking at how much I've, have I produced what I want to? And if I haven't, what do I need to do to get there? And, I spend a day on business development. So the first day I'm figuring out where I'm at, where are my shortcomings,
Mhm.
and then the next day I'm thinking, how am I going to get to these other places that I want to be? And again, both personally and professionally, but there's always a process, right? There's a flow chart to it all.
Oh, absolutely. And do you say how many days do you do? 3 days?
So I spend 2 nights.
Okay.
So I get over there like early afternoon on the first day,
Mhm.
and then I leave like midday so I spend the night, and then I leave midday on that last day. So I get something in on the afternoon,
Mhm.
in the evening, that first night there. And then there's also some like personal R&R time, right? Like I get a bottle of wine and my favorite frozen pizza, and just enjoy that.
Mm.
Um yeah,
So what
it's
gave you
the
the
thing.
idea to do that?
Well, so I have a master's degree in leadership. So I originally wanted to, when I first started like college, or like had to pick a major, I wanted to get my doctorate in organizational development. I wanted to make places that people worked a better place to work. And like
Look
two
at
sem my
you.
sec
You're
yeah,
doing it
well, my
at your
second
own place.
semester in on my leadership, my first or second semester in on my master's degree, I realized there's no way I want to do this. It will be torture. It will be an uphill battle the whole time. People don't want to change. It's basically a job trying to get people to do shit they don't want to do. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And like, how can that possibly be fun? Like, I was like, no,
You're
no
like,
dice.
right, right. And that's
Right. So
so
like
funny.
I immediately jumped into, there was a new FIU had just put out a new like executive master's program for international real estate. And so with the leadership, because I did decide to finish that leadership degree so that
Right.
I could, because I wanted to finish it. It took
Yeah.
me forever to start it. But I did go ahead and go through the program for international real estate as well at FIU, because I wanted to be able to play ball with the big boys, right? I wanted to like understand everything about the finance and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I quickly decided commercial is not my jam. I am just not trying to that's not my tribe.
Right.
I think it's cool. I love a lot about it. I could talk a lot about it, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can still apply all that on the residential side anyhow with my like investment property stuff. So it's cool. So, but between both of those programs, though, there's project management that I had to learn. There's and then again with the leadership, there's all sorts of different, not only the psychology that you learn about things, but both programs basically help me figure out, if you have a problem, you've got to go about solving it a certain way,
Yeah.
basically. Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Right.
So, and I knew I had to do something, right? Like I had to, whatever I was doing before wasn't going to work. Like I needed more accountability, and I wasn't around people, and I wasn't in a sales office. So I had
Yeah.
to do something. And so that's what worked. And when I tried skipping one, bad idea. So now we don't skip it anymore. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a process to it.
There is. Well, because like if I go more than 3 months, I stop
Mhm.
paying as close attention, but then I also get resentful because I'm not getting that chance to take away. That's my time. That's for me, so that I'm not sitting up and instead of sleeping, budgeting or trying to figure out my numbers or whatever, because there's not enough hours in the day.
To keep
You know,
it.
it
Yeah.
gives me time to do the stuff that I always put off because it's important, but not urgent.
And I think that even no matter what industry you're in, even just your own personal finances and checking in with yourself, no matter what your profession is, I think taking these, I love that, taking a retreat just to read,
Hmm.
because I mean, if you're a mom, you are the CEO of your
The
house.
chief everything officer.
Exactly. Exactly. So even if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a teacher, like you have to like taking that time. I love that, taking that time and just regrouping. And one of the things that I is surprising to me, or was surprising to me, is that all of this, mindset work and working on, the internal stuff, to me, I always felt, okay, you listen to the thing and now you're good and you don't have to listen to the thing anymore. But
Mm.
it's this whole emotional piece of the mind and doing all this stuff. It really is like going to the gym. Like, do you
Yeah.
feel like it's something that you can't just do a one and done? You have to constantly keep working and pulling those layers of the onion away.
Right.
And
Right. Because right, it's not going to happen on its own. Like I was actually even thinking about
and then
this
there's new
earlier.
stuff. But and like I've recognized the people pleaser thing, and then something else comes up like, oh yeah, I got to work on that too. And then like it just keeps, there's more things to work
Because
on
it's a journey, not a
the
destination.
journey. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. It is
Yeah. So like
100%.
and like once you really like you can say it but not mean it, right? Like once that click happens for the fact that it's a journey,
Right.
not a destination.
Yeah.
I mean, and for people right now who are like, times are real estate's not hopping like it was last year, you
Hmm.
know, if money's tight or whatever, having that mindset that everything's going to be all right and I just got to keep pushing forward,
Yeah.
right, and just keep going with it. God, there was something I really wanted to touch on where you were before though, because the two connect.
Yeah.
The consistency, you just have to stay consistent and you have to just know that if you stay disciplined,
Hmm.
but you can't expect this stuff to happen on its own, right? Like I can't think that I'm going to lose 40 pounds by Monday or whatever,
Right.
or well, I mean, that's completely unrealistic anyhow, but like, I can't think that I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 4 months if I don't ever go to the gym and change what I'm eating.
And don't you
Right.
feel like your own thinking can't really fix your own thinking? Like,
Okay. So
like we
yes
can,
and no.
I mean, like
Yes and no.
it kind of needs some outside forces to give you new ideas to think about. So you change your thinking.
So yes, in the sense that like, going to your event and listening to motivational things or different books
Right.
or things like that. And I actually, for like the first time in like, I don't know, 15, no, 20 years, I actually started seeing a therapist. We'll see how it goes. It's only been like 2 sessions.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Keep us
I'm
posted.
still I'm still on the fence. But that being said, one of the things that I've been trying to do for my own personal improvement and my enlightenment, if you will,
Mhm.
is journaling.
Mm.
And like I have the same journal since before COVID, right? Like because I just started getting really truly disciplined. So
Mhm.
I can look back and I can see that like once a year I was writing in there and then I would like drop the ball.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of myself because it was one of the things that's
Yeah.
on my goals for this year, that I want to be more disciplined with it. And I have found that it's so weird because it just flows out. So like I feel like I'm stuck in an idea, but if I start writing about these things that I'm sort of ruminating on,
Almost like
all of a
right.
sudden
Yeah.
the answer comes to me,
Yeah.
like as I'm doing it,
Hmm.
like I've been trying to explore, like, why am I being self-destructive in the sense of, I know that I will blow up like crazy if I could just stay like stay disciplined and not just journal, but I feel like make sure that I'm exercising on a regular basis and freaking meditate. Meditate.
Yeah.
I
And breathe.
know the value of meditation 100%. I am telling you, it is like a miracle drug. It is part of what got me out of my depression. That's
That's
the
good
main
to
thing,
know.
by the way. I should have mentioned that. The meditation is everything. Meditation or being in flow. There's studies that prove it.
Mhm.
They're, across the board, right? Can I tell you, it's like on my list every day and I don't freaking do it. And
Yeah, yeah.
yesterday I realized that what it is that I am afraid of, first of all, I'm not comfortable with being uncomfortable. And all I know is being frantic and getting a lot of stuff done and working like
Mm,
tirelessly until I'm chilling out. When I'm chilling out, I'm chilling out. When I'm partying or hanging out with my friends, I'm there and I'm present. But
right.
when I'm working, like I only know
Yeah.
the go
Go,
go's
go.
my nickname, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go,
right.
go,
I
go.
only
Yeah.
know to zoom
Right.
zoom and go, right?
Yeah.
So I think I identified yesterday actually while I was journaling that where I'm struggling is I'm afraid that if I meditate, I know that it will help make center me
Yeah.
and it'll stop all the chaos. And I'm afraid then that I won't have the motivation to get the
Mhm.
things done that I need to get done.
It's
And like
almost like
that's
that's
super
your
raw
gas.
and
Like
super
that's your,
honest.
yeah, that's your gas. And you're afraid if you unplug the gas, then you won't have any gas.
Right, right.
You know,
So
it's interesting because I was just listening to a podcast this morning and a little bit yesterday because I have to break them up just because of the time. And what this gentleman was saying is that he was afraid of success, and not in the sense of like like having the success. It was, he was afraid that if he got to that point, that he would still discover that he didn't matter.
oh, see, that's deep. So I get that. So, but I've been there, right?
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
interesting that you say that, that I want, you know, like you, there's like, we think it's, oh, I'm just afraid of success. And people are like, why would you be afraid of success? And like,
right. But I feel like there's like this incestual like correlation between the fear of success and imposter syndrome.
yep.
They're like
Yeah.
they're like roll dog cousins,
Mhm.
right? Like or something.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
something intertwined
And,
in that
and,
part.
and so what he added to is that it's not really success that we want. And this was just his story, is that we want greatness. And the way we get greatness is by bringing people with us on our success journey, so that we're not alone, and that we want to, the more, like you said, the more you help people and the more you bring along people with that success, that it's not just success, that it's greatness that we actually want. And when
Is it
you,
greatness or is it joy? I wonder.
well, I think it's kind of tied together, you know, like the
Yeah.
great, like being great with other people and bringing other people joy at the same time. He felt like that's what he was afraid, that he wouldn't be able to accomplish that he would just get to the top and it would just be him. And there was nobody to share it with.
Right. That's deep. Like I almost like when we get done, I kind of want to reflect on my own like aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like what,
The purpose.
what do I
Why am I
see? Or
doing
right,
it? Yeah.
like so this therapist asked me the other day, like, what's the end goal? Like what do I see? And
Right.
like I saw her eyes open up when I'm like, it wasn't just material thing. I'm like, I want this and this so that we can do this. I want to make sure that we get 6 long weekends a year. Like I have to schedule vacations because I never allowed myself to travel. And I
Mm,
always felt guilty. That
mm.
also comes from like the corporate thing where you can't call in sick and all that stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
it took a long time for me to feel comfortable
Yep.
taking time for myself to like go on holiday and vacation, especially in property management. We don't have a life.
No, no. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. I'm glad to hear you say that, because from my teaching experience, like literally the minute you walked in your classroom in the morning, like you didn't go to the bathroom, you didn't eat, like you didn't go anywhere. Like
Right.
it's
Like that
still,
is sick.
but
Like
I
I just have
mean,
to say that is sick and twisted.
it
You know?
really was. I mean, and like
Yeah.
just to go out to your car, we would have to sign out. I mean, and not all of my experiences were like that. That was just with a few administrators, the whole control thing. But when I got out, like you, it took me almost 2 years to literally get over that anxiety of, like not having to report in of where I was at.
Take
Like
time for taking
having the
time to take care of
freedom.
you.
Yes.
Because PS, if you don't, nobody else is going to, and there's not
Yep.
going to be any point anyhow.
Exactly. I always refer to that. I mean, I love, there's nothing more. I mean, there was so much joy out of that job. And I there are parts of it that I truly, truly miss. So I don't want it to sound like it was horrific, because it was really rewarding. But it was definitely an abusive relationship. And not by the parents and not by the kids, which everybody seems to think. It was
No.
for the actual the makeup of the industry, the administrators, all of the
See, but that's what
stuff
that
that comes
is
with
that
it.
the lack of evolution in the management across the board everywhere,
Yeah.
like
So it's not
everywhere.
just, I'm
Like,
glad to hear you say that because I thought, but I think we're all meant for freedom. I really think that we're meant for autonomy and to have freedom in choices of our life. Like that's just
well, I agree. And the thing is too, though, I think the reason we got stuck in it though is because like, so the industrial revolution comes along, right? And so they got to keep everybody who's working in these factories and working, and part of who are all the cogs, and in the
well, it's
system or
safe.
whatever.
It's a safe,
Yeah.
it's a safe route.
Well, and not just that, but like, management had to keep people under their thumb, right? You had to, but the machinery has evolved. Why hasn't the management?
Right, right. Yeah.
Like managing by
Sure.
fear. My wife was working at this one of these massage spas, that
Mhm.
you have subscriptions to,
Right.
and they would have a cow if she went over a few minutes at, like, even though she was going into her lunch break, or they insisted on her being 15 minutes early when she their first appointment. You're not paying her for that time, and then would say they're going to write her up.
Yeah.
Write her up? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
She's 50 years old. Well, she wasn't 50 years old, but you know what I'm saying? She was
Right,
pushing it at the
right.
time. A
Yeah.
professional for 7 years, in that industry.
Hmm.
The best elbows in Central Florida, thank you very much. And, and these people are just like,
Yeah.
how do they even think that works? You know what I'm saying? Like,
And
I'm going to write you up. Okay, you go right ahead, sweet tits. What I'm
yeah,
saying?
no,
Like,
no, it's so true. It's so true. But I'm glad that, because here it is. Like, I think that that was just in my industry and my experience. But I hear that a lot, and that it's just nice to know that it could go to any type of profession.
right, right. Well, because that's how all jobs were for so long, though.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It just makes me appreciate, it makes me really appreciate where I'm at right now.
oh, me too. I on a regular basis. First of all, when I first started getting weekends before I was in real estate, like, and I actually had a weekend off, it felt like a vacation every weekend
Yeah.
because I worked in retail. My first career, if you will, was
That's
a retail
forever.
manager.
That's
And so
forever.
you never had weekends. And so
Yeah.
it was like a vacation every weekend. It took years just for that part to stop. But
Yeah.
now, like when I'm running errands on a Tuesday morning, or I'm having a great day peppering in work and some professional things and all this other, and then I'm stopping for lunch with a client or another agent or whatever. I'm so grateful. But like my sister, she sent me this keychain that's a tape measure. And although I can't use it, it turns out that it doesn't have the proper measurements.
Oh
That
my
was a
God, that's so
debacle.
funny.
But that's okay. The whole thing
That's funny.
is that the
The
tape measure
meaning,
said
yes.
she built the life she wanted.
Oh, I love that.
And my wife and I
Oh, I
say
have
all
to
the
write
time,
that
we
down.
love our life. We have built the life that we want. We love our life.
I love that. That is wonderful.
Hmm.
I really, I love that. That's beautiful. That is just beautiful. So let me ask you, because I think mindset, you can work on it it's a journey, like you said. So looking at where you were, where you are now, what, how, how, how has your mindset changed the relationships that you have, and even in your business? Like, can you see a before and an after?
Oh, 100%. First of all, with friends and on a professional level,
Yeah.
right? Because first of all, when your mindset changes, you end up cleaning house
Hmm.
because you're setting boundaries.
Yeah.
You're not pleasing everybody else. I'm not going to be. I'm already loud and like all out there, and I'm not going to let anybody dim my shine.
Right.
But on top of that, I'm not going to dim my shine so you can feel more comfortable.
Mm.
And so sometimes that means that if we're, you know, I don't
Do
know,
you
I
feel
don't
like
go
you
out
were,
here.
do you feel like you did that before? Do you feel like you
Yeah, I felt like it was required of me
went,
to conform. Now, maybe I'm not going all like I wasn't going all Karen when we were out in public
right,
or whatever, but I'm always going to be me. You're
right,
always going to notice me in a room. almost always, you know what I'm saying? But like, I just have a very big personality.
You just
I have a,
stepped into that and you own that as like, this is what is so
right. Like I'm going to
wonderful about
quit
me. This is
trying to
not
make myself smaller, like
I
tall,
love,
tall
yes,
people have that thing. Like I'm not going
yes,
to,
yes.
not going to do that anymore. I have to
Yeah,
just live my truth and my reality. And if you're not comfortable with it, I am so sorry.
yeah.
I
And
need you
we
to work
need,
that out somewhere
but I have
else.
to say, we need people like you. We need people that are in the room and, like, because I tend
Give
to,
you permission to be you.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And show that you're comfortable being you. And then we all get to be ourselves.
Right. And then like everybody gets along, right? Because when you're not trying to like make up for some shortcoming that you're feeling in the inside of your head or whatever, it just
Yeah.
seems like everything goes so much better.
Do you feel like now that you've come to this, this different thinking and your observation, do you find that you can kind of spot people that are not comfortable in their own skin more so than like, are you a little more aware?
I probably always could because like I read people, like I'm a people watcher. Before I even learned all the psychology I learned in grad school, like I
Right.
was, I was always like I always watch people. So that's always been my jam anyhow. But do I think that I spot it? I don't know if I do because like one of these friends that I was talking about how well, she's not a vampire, but I can tell that when like we're around her and we make her like I'm not making her feel any way, but
What you mean?
my interaction with her brings her to feeling, happier and more confident about herself because I am full of compliments and I mean them. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't give compliments when they're not due, and so like, but I didn't realize until like the last time I saw her, like it brightens so much for her. Like it's really, you know, butters her bread, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like it makes your day a little bit better when she gets to like be around us and hang out and whatnot. And
Yeah.
I didn't notice that before at all before we were friends or when we hung out. So I don't know if I'm actually more, I don't think it's even ever on my radar. Like I
Right.
don't think I even make it a thing
Yeah. Yeah.
unless it comes into how someone interacts with me. If someone doesn't feel good about themselves, sometimes they just act like a turd and
Right.
then
Right.
then it's obvious, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when people overcompensate.
Right. Yeah. It just makes, yes, exactly. When they're acting
Yeah.
like a turd.
Yeah.
So remember that, people. If you're acting like a turd, then we're gonna start thinking that you
I'm
That's
trying to keep
great.
my colorful language still
Oh, please.
authentic, but not
Oh, listen, you do not have to worry. When I publish this, I always put explicit so that we don't have to worry about that because I've had guests that we've dropped a few F bombs and it does
right. I
happen.
mean, it's
So
natural when you're from
we are just
Chicago.
gonna
I'm
be,
very proud of myself.
yeah,
I'm very proud of
we're gonna be ourselves. So what advice would you give to your younger self? So anyone that's listening to this that may not be as, has had the privilege to get this far in their mindset, what would you tell your younger self?
um
Mm,
wow, that wasn't on your list that you
I
sent me
know,
for
I
me
was
to,
just, I know, I just,
but
because,
that's okay because I can do this
okay.
because
And it's really,
yeah.
and I think because you kind of led me to that question of just because
Mm-hmm.
of your story,
So,
got some good,
one of your questions you did have was when's the first time I realized
yes.
something about my mindset, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
when I was like in the, I don't know, second or third grade, and my
Okay.
stepdad, he instilled in both me and my brother that, well, first of all, hate's a very strong word.
Hmm.
Sometimes life's not fair, but you can do anything you set your mind to. And that's the main one is like, I can do anything I set my mind to, right? So I remember we were driving through like, I remember it because we were driving through like a kind of a shady part of Chicago at the time or whatever. And because I asked him why he locked the doors. and then I proceeded to ask him if he was racist. Um,
And you were in
and
second
he's like,
grade?
no, it's just not a safe area. We're going to lock the doors.
That
But
that's
I
funny.
remember, so we were having the conversation. So I can do anything I want to set my mind to. So I could rob a bank if I wanted. He said, absolutely. You have to be willing to suffer the consequences if you get caught, but you absolutely can if you put your mind to it. Okay, bet. So like that being said, it is what makes me awesome in my job because when I don't want to hear no, and I think that's not the winning answer. I'll get like, "Okay, girl, don't tell me no. Okay, that's all I got to say." Like, I will find a way to get that yes.
Mm, yes. Oh my
um,
gosh.
so I'm very in that respect. So what I would tell my younger self, though, going back to that, is that it really is true that you can do anything you set your mind to. But also, like my super younger self,
Mhm.
I would tell her, this is hard. High school, middle school don't matter. They scar you. It's what you spend the rest of your life getting over.
Yep.
But I would tell her that you do get to be that girl that gets to go back as the badass, and that you're going to blossom later. We
Yeah.
all blossom in our own way when we start being true to ourselves and loving ourselves. And then, like, all the stuff happens, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Interesting.
I think if I had had more empowerment from the people around me,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? I think that my path may have been different. I love where I'm at. I love my life. I say it all the time.
Mhm.
But I would be curious to know, you know what I'm saying? How beneficial it could be to hear those right words. And you don't need to hear I'm pretty or you're smart or whatever. Like, I already knew I was pretty and smart.
Mhm.
But because of all the other outside chatter, it was really hard to believe myself.
Mhm.
I think I would have told myself, just be true to yourself.
Mhm.
You're right. Your gut's right. Your perception of yourself is right. Your perception of these situations is right.
Mhm.
You know, and then the thing that everybody always says, it's going to be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
And I kind of hate that sometimes, because, like, when you don't when you're eating, like, there was a time in my life I was eating peanut butter crackers and drinking coffee from the jewelry store down the way from mine, so I
Mhm.
could give my son all the food, right?
Mhm.
Like, and actually back then I had a great mindset. Okay, everything works out for the best, everything works out for the best.
Yeah.
That's really hard to hear when you're freaking hungry. Okay, when you're looking through the sofa for 64 cents for gas,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
we call it our peanut butter and jelly days.
yeah, you know what I'm
Like,
saying? Like,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's really hard to pull yourself out of that too, like, when it feels, and I think that's what people need to know too.
Mhm.
Like, that feeling is 100% real, and it's valid, and it's rational. But if you think of the worst thing that ever happened to you, and you know that you got through that,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, so true. And one of the things that I went to a Tony Robbins event, and one of the things that he prides himself on is not pride, that's not the right word. One of the stories that he tells is how horrific his life was. And it kind of helped, and I think this helps a lot of people when you think like your story. But he said, I have to go back and be thankful for those hard times, and that, how horrific his upbringing was, because it would not have made him the person that he is today. And look at all the people, whether you like him or love him, he's definitely changed some lives. So I wonder if we could change that story for you today, that as
oh, I'm already there. I am the sum of my experiences.
so that
A hundred.
so as much as high school and middle school sucked, like maybe
I
you.
wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for that. I wouldn't have had that drive to sort of prove myself. And maybe that's the motivation that I needed. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a legit hereditary thing in my family with people being a little on the lazy side. So, like, like, maybe that's what I needed.
Yeah,
I had my son when I was 16. I needed that,
yeah,
because I would have just been partying or whatever.
yeah,
Like, I wouldn't have been all these things with me. Your one of your questions was, was there an event, right? So,
yeah,
like, I kind of went back and forth, but then I thought, the thing is, it's a trick question, right? Because that one event wouldn't have happened without all the other events before it.
right.
Even, and we've talked about this before, like I was in a super like emotionally abusive relationship for 5.5 years.
Mhm.
And I mean, the person you're talking to now was not, she was gone. Like, I was a shadow of myself, just the shell. And I'm still working on forgiving, but what I have come to terms with is that my life is freaking spectacular. My marriage is phenomenal because of those things,
Mhm.
because of those things that I experienced, even my business to that extent. Do you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? So like, and also I think the other thing, and people can believe this or not, but akin to the it's going to be okay. My thing is the universe creates balance.
Mhm.
There is, there would be no bad if there was no good, because there would be nothing to compare it to, and vice
So true.
versa.
So true. I'm so glad you said that because it is, and I was telling someone that the other day we were talking about, just some of these things that were happening, and that is so true that if you don't have a bad experience, there's no way you could experience the good.
Right.
You don't know what, if it's all good, then how would you
Right. Then
know that it's good?
what are you celebrating, or what are you moving towards, or whatever,
Yeah.
And to that end, would you even appreciate, look at those people when things get handed, very rarely, there are the few out there that can appreciate what they have when it's just handed to them or whatever. But more often than not, at
We
some
don't
point,
know
they
their
didn't have that
story.
something.
I was gonna say, and we don't know their stories. I bet you there's a story
Right.
behind all that. That there was, even though on the outside it looks like they had everything, it could have been something that we don't monetarily look at as maybe they didn't.
Right.
So
Right. Because you can have all the stuff in the world, and
I have
one
a
day
lot of
find yourself putting everything you can in your minivan and putting it in a storage unit,
friends.
trying to find somewhere to stay.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I had nothing,
yeah,
like it, but you start over and you can appreciate it.
yeah,
You know, money does make things easier.
yeah,
So anybody who says money doesn't matter is full of crap. But
yeah,
it makes it easier, but it's not going to make you happy.
yeah. And we have one of our business partners tells a story about his daughter who passed away with cancer, and how horrific that whole experience was with his for his family. And he carries a rock around to remember how horrific like that time was, because he's doing really well now. And he reminds himself that if anything can be fixed with money, because he said there was no amount of money in the world that would have saved his daughter. And he
Right.
reminds himself that if you can solve a problem with money, then it's not really a problem. And that was,
Mm.
and what I promised myself is that
Mm.
hearing his story, like I wanted his daughter to have, like, it wasn't in vain. Like it touched
Right.
my life. And so now if I can take that same message and pass it on and live that way, then that just gives his daughter even more purpose, even though she's still not here.
Right.
So,
Right. It's the quantum entanglement of it all.
yep, yep, exactly. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you forever. I love you. I'm so happy that my buyers found a house literally probably an hour and a half from my normal area. So I wouldn't even have
I
been,
don't even do much business down there. It's
which
because
is
I've
so
worked
funny
with the
because neither
family.
do
I've sold them
I.
like, right, like 8 houses. Like the family, they feel like my family. I've worked with them
Yes.
for so long. So when
So
the uncle
funny.
needed something, I was like, okay,
Yep.
I'm on
Same
it.
here. Yep. I'll drive, an hour and a half to we'll go see this house an hour and a half away, and totally not anywhere near where I would be working. But same thing.
Right.
It was meant for us to be friends.
100%. I'm so grateful for it.
Yes.
I
Well,
really am.
I
I
thank
adore
you
you.
so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. We'll do this
Hmm.
again because I think there's more. We'll be learning more, and we'll be able to share more with everyone.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
I'll share freely that, my story is that both my parents struggled with addiction, and the end result is that unfortunately, addiction doesn't care about anyone really in its wake. And my mom committed suicide years later, and my dad unfortunately died of complication with his addiction. And I saw them struggle, and although they were just such good human beings, they really struggled. And I was in that system, and to be really candid, I was on that path. Was on that path of being my environment, letting my environment, me be a byproduct of my environment. And I'm also, as painful of a scenario as that was, and as much as I was being caught in it, I somehow was able to flip it around, call it grace, call it divine, whatever you call it, I'll take it.